Imagine waking up in a world where the air smells of damp earth and pine, but it's not refreshing. It's heavy, like the weight of something watching you from the shadows. You're shivering, not just from the cold that bites through your thin skin, but from the realization that you're utterly alone. No phone, no GPS, no grocery store down the street, just you. Barefoot, standing on a rocky outcrop in a forest so dense it feels like it's swallowing you whole. The year? Well, it's not 2025 anymore. You've been dropped into the prehistoric era roughly 40,000 years ago when Neanderthals and early humans roamed. And here's the twist. You're not one of the strong ones. You're different. Maybe your leg doesn't work right, or your mind moves slower than the others. Maybe you're just not like them. Could you survive? Would they even let you? Let's paint the scene. It's dawn, but the sun barely cuts through the mist. The ground is slick with frost, and your stomach is already clawing at itself from hunger. You hear a low growl in the distance. Not a machine, not a car, but something alive, something with teeth. You're in a Neanderthal world where every day is a gamble with death. The trees around you are towering, their branches knotted like the fingers of some ancient giant. The wind carries the faint stench of rotting meat, probably from a kill left behind by a predator, or worse, by your new neighbors. You're not just fighting the cold or the hunger, you're fighting to belong in a world that doesn't care if you live or die. Now, let's be real. You're not Bear Grylls. Most of us aren't. If you're sitting there watching this, maybe sipping a latte or scrolling on your phone, you're probably not built for this. Your soft hands, your reliance on Wi-Fi, your need for a hot shower, none of that exists here. The people of this time, the Neanderthals and early Homo sapiens, were forged in a crucible of ice and blood. They didn't just survive, they thrived in conditions that would break you in a day. But what if you were born different in their world? What if you couldn't run as fast, fight as hard, or think as quickly? Would they carry you along, or would they leave you behind in the snow? That's what we're diving into today, how prehistoric people treated those who didn't fit the mold. And trust me, the answers aren't what you expect. They're not all heartwarming tales of compassion, but they're not all brutal either. It's a messy, human story, one that might make you rethink what it means to be civilized. Let's start with the stakes. Survival in the prehistoric era wasn't a solo game. You needed a group, a tribe, to make it through the winter. Neanderthals lived in small bands, maybe 10 to 30 people, huddled in caves or makeshift shelters. They hunted massive beasts like woolly mammoths, which could crush you with one step, and gathered whatever plants they could find that wouldn't poison them. Every member had a role: hunters, gatherers, tool makers. If you couldn't keep up, you were a liability. Imagine being the one who can't run from a saber-toothed cat or who needs extra food when the group is already starving. Harsh, right? But here's where it gets interesting. Archaeological evidence, like the bones of a Neanderthal man from Shanidar Cave in Iraq, tells us something surprising. This guy, nicknamed Shanidar I, was different. He had a deformed arm, a crushed skull, and was partially blind. He couldn't hunt or fight, yet he lived to be around 40, ancient for his time. Someone fed him. Someone protected him. Why? That's the question we'll unravel as we go deeper. But before we get to the heart of it, picture yourself in that tribe. You're not just different, you're a burden. The group is on the move, following a herd of reindeer across a frozen valley. Your leg drags, slowing everyone down. The others glance at you, their eyes hard, their breath steaming in the cold. You can feel their judgment. Would they keep you alive out of kindness, or would they see you as dead weight? Hold that thought, because surviving the day is only half the battle. The real test comes when the sun sets and the darkness brings out the worst in everyone. You've made it through the morning, but don't get too comfortable. The prehistoric world doesn't give you a break just because you're still breathing. Your stomach's growling louder now, and the cold is seeping into your bones. You're part of this Neanderthal tribe, but you're different. Maybe you were born with a condition like Down syndrome, or maybe an injury left you limping. Either way, you're not pulling your weight, and you can feel the tension in the air. The others are watching you, their faces unreadable. Let's be honest, if you were dropped into their world with your modern habits, your need for 3 meals a day, your fear of getting dirty, you'd be dead by noon. So why are you still here? What made these so-called cavemen decide whether to keep you or cut you loose? Let's break it down. Survival in the prehistoric era was a brutal equation. Food was scarce, and finding it was a gamble. You might spend days tracking a herd of deer, only to come back empty-handed. Plants? Half of them were poisonous, and the other half were buried under snow for months. Water wasn't much better. Streams were often contaminated with bacteria that could kill you faster than starvation. Neanderthals had to be smart, not just strong. They knew which berries wouldn't make you vomit your guts out and how to crack open bones to suck out the marrow when meat was scarce. Yes, marrow. Imagine slurping that down raw, still warm from the kill. Grossed out? They weren't. It was calories, and calories meant life. Now compare that to you. Your body's soft, conditioned for a world of supermarkets and antibiotics. Your immune system would collapse at the first sip of prehistoric pond water. Your muscles, even if you hit the gym, aren't built for hauling a 200-pound carcass through a blizzard. And your mind? You're used to Google solving your problems. Neanderthals didn't have that luxury. They learned through pain, trial, and error, mostly error. A single mistake, like eating the wrong root or stepping on a sharp rock, could mean infection, gangrene, and a slow, agonizing death. No doctors, no painkillers, just you and the dirt. Here's where it gets wild. Archaeological finds, like the remains of a child from Portugal dated to about 24,000 years ago, show us that some prehistoric people didn't just survive, they cared for those who couldn't care for themselves. This child, likely with a congenital condition like Down syndrome, was buried with care, surrounded by offerings like animal bones and flowers. Flowers! In a world where every second was spent fighting to stay alive, someone took the time to pick flowers for a kid who couldn't hunt or gather. That's not just compassion, it's a choice that could have cost the group precious resources. But not every story is so touching. Other sites, like the Krapina cave in Croatia, show darker truths. Some Neanderthal bones there have cut marks, signs of cannibalism. Were they eating their own out of desperation, or was it something ritualistic? We don't know for sure, but it's a stark reminder. Survival often meant making choices that would haunt you. So, picture yourself in that tribe again. The day's been brutal, but you're still alive, thanks to someone sharing their food. Maybe it's a woman who sees you struggling and slips you a piece of roasted meat. Maybe it's a hunter who carries you when you can't walk. But as the sun dips below the horizon, the real danger begins. Night isn't just cold, it's when the predators come out, both the four-legged kind and the two-legged kind. You're about to learn that the biggest threat isn't always the wolves howling in the distance. Sometimes it's the people you're sleeping next to. The sun's gone now, and the world feels like it's holding its breath. You're huddled in a cave with the tribe, the fire casting flickering shadows on the walls. The air smells of smoke and sweat, and the crackle of burning wood is the only sound breaking the silence. You're different. Maybe your body's frail, or your mind doesn't work like theirs. You've made it this far, but every glance from the others feels like a blade. You're starting to realize that surviving the cold, the hunger, and the predators outside is only half the fight. The real danger might be the people around you, the ones you're supposed to trust. Let's shatter a myth. You've probably heard that prehistoric people were simple, living in harmony with nature, sharing everything like one big happy family. That's a nice story, but the bones tell a different one. Take the site at Gran Dolina in Spain, where archaeologists found human remains from 800,000 years ago with clear signs of violence. Skulls smashed, bones broken by tools, not claws. These weren't accidents, they were deliberate. Some researchers think it was cannibalism, not out of starvation, but as a ritual or a power play. Imagine that, your own tribe turning on you. Not because they're hungry, but because you're different, and different can mean dangerous. Or maybe it was just easier to get rid of you than to keep you alive. Now, don't get me wrong, not every group was like this. That Neanderthal from Shanidar Cave, the one with the broken body who lived to 40, he's proof that some tribes care deeply. His injuries would have made him useless in a hunt, yet he was fed, protected, maybe even loved. But love in the prehistoric world came at a cost. Every bite of food given to someone who couldn't contribute was a bite taken from someone else. Every moment spent guarding you was a moment not spent hunting or making tools. Compassion was a luxury, and not every group could afford it. Some skeletons, like those from Sungir in Russia, show children with disabilities buried with elaborate grave goods, beads, ivory, tools. It's beautiful, but it's also rare. For every story of care, there's another of abandonment, or worse. Picture yourself in that cave. The fire's dying and the cold is creeping in. You're trying to stay invisible, but you can feel the eyes on you. Someone whispers, their voice low and sharp. You don't speak their language, but you know what they're saying. Why are we keeping them alive? Your heart's pounding, not just from fear, but from the realization that you're not built for this. Your modern body, your modern mind, they're liabilities here. You're not just weaker physically, you're softer mentally. You've never had to face the kind of choices these people make every day. Who eats, who starves, who lives, who dies. And yet, somehow, your ancestors did this. They survived. They carried their weak, their different, their outcasts, at least sometimes. But at what cost? Here's the kicker. You're not as far removed from this world as you think. Strip away your phone, your car, your cozy apartment, and you're just as vulnerable as they were. The only difference is the stakes. They fought wolves and starvation. You fight deadlines and Wi-Fi outages. But deep down, the same instincts drive you. Fear, loyalty, survival. The question is, if you were pushed to the edge, would you care for the outcast, or would you turn away? Hold on to that, because the story's not over. The fire's almost out, and the night's about to show you what it really means to be human. The fire's gone out now, and the cave is swallowed by darkness. You're still here, somehow, curled up against the cold stone, listening to the heavy breathing of the tribe around you. You're the outcast, the one who doesn't fit, and yet you're alive, for now. The prehistoric world you've been dropped into is a mirror, reflecting truths about humanity that are as raw today as they were 40,000 years ago. You've seen the care in the flowers laid on a child's grave, the violence in a shattered skull, the impossible choices etched into every bone we've dug up. So, what does it all mean? Were our ancestors monsters or saints? And what does their story say about you? Let's rewind through the journey. You woke up in a frozen, hostile world, your modern comforts stripped away. You faced hunger, cold, and predators, both animal and human. You learned that survival wasn't just about strength, it was about the group, the tribe, and the brutal math of who could contribute and who couldn't. You saw the evidence, skeletons of the disabled cared for until old age, but also bones bearing the marks of violence and betrayal. The prehistoric era wasn't a fairy tale of unity or a horror show of savagery. It was both, tangled together in a way that's uncomfortably familiar. Because here's the truth, we haven't changed as much as we think. You're sitting there, maybe in a warm room, maybe with a snack in hand, but don't let that fool you. Your world is softer, sure, but it's still built on the same instincts. We still judge who's worthy of help, who gets to belong. We still draw lines between us and them. The Neanderthals who cared for their outcasts weren't so different from the people today who fight for inclusion, just as the ones who abandoned or killed their weak echo the darker parts of our society. The question isn't just how they treated their outcasts, it's how we treat ours. When you pass someone on the street, someone who doesn't fit, too sick, too strange, too broken, do you look away? Do you help? Or do you, like some of our ancestors, decide it's easier to let them fade into the cold? Here's the final twist. Those prehistoric people, the ones we call cavemen, weren't just brutes or heroes. They were us. Their bones carry the same DNA that runs through your veins. Their choices, their struggles, their moments of compassion or cruelty, they're all part of you. You've survived this thought experiment, this plunge into their world, but it's not just a story about the past. It's a warning. We're still animals, dressed up in clothes and Wi-Fi, pretending we've outgrown the wild. But take away the safety net, and what are you? Would you carry the outcast, even if it meant risking your own survival? Or would you let them go, telling yourself it's for the greater good? As the cave fades from your mind, imagine one last image, a single ember glowing in the ashes of that long-dead fire. It's not just light, it's a spark of something human, something that kept us alive through ice ages and darkness. That spark is still in you, but it's up to you to decide what it illuminates, compassion or indifference, courage or fear. The prehistoric world is gone, but its lessons aren't. So, the next time you look in the mirror, ask yourself, are you really so different from the outcast staring back?